Let's talk The Walking Dead, Season 6, Episode 2, Afterthoughts. Now, Episode 2, which was titled JSS, I officially grade this, in my opinion, a mid-great. Now, this was better than the premiere, in my opinion, as far as entertainment. Yeah, I loved it better. Now, when you break down the story and elements, I don't think this episode takes away anything from the premiere. I stand, strongly behind the belief that the transitions and the setup in the premiere of The Walking Dead makes that one solid episode. When you break it down to its core, I just I can't fathom people picking it apart. It is just solid all around. If you want to watch my opinions about it in the Afterthoughts, I just posted it previously. Go ahead and check that out. Now, breaking down this episode 2 and why I gave it a mid-great. One of the strongest aspects, in my eyes, about this episode is the fact that Carol, not that she's a badass, or not that it highlights her again as the Terminus Terminator or the Rambo of the series. Look beyond that. The best thing, and I didn't realize this at first, I actually realized this like the third time after watching this episode and thinking about it clearly. This episode clears the air with Carol, because a lot of fans were starting to get confused and believe that Carol is just a cold-hearted killer. And a lot of fans are still just saying that. They're like, oh, Carol is just a monster, a killer, a serial killer. I hear lots of people still saying Carol just loves to kill. I even seen a couple comments today just brushing up on this shit. This episode completely cleared the air with that. If you still missed it, please go back and rewatch that. Yeah, just do yourself a favor, go back and rewatch that. Especially when she sits down and has that emotional moment. Now that's where it's starting to break apart for her, and that's where it's starting, or this mask that she put on as far as being okay with killing, that's where it's starting to come through that, you know what, she's not okay with this. And I do want to put something interesting here real quick. Did you notice that when, after Beth died, Daryl sat down with a cigarette and got all emotional? Now, after the attack on Alexandria, Carol sat down with a cigarette, even though she wasn't smoking it. But it mirrored that. And I do love when they mirror things in shows and movies. But it's the same thing, sitting down with a cigarette crying, and it's the two characters that a lot of people ship, but I just love their back and forth. More so as friends, I'm not into the whole romantic thing, but as friends, I like that aspect. I really enjoy their banter back and forth. Now, the other big thing as far as a character is concerned in this episode was Morgan. Now, I do believe that this has to deal with more of a setup. With Carol, it was kind of like, it wasn't character development. It was character development, but it was kind of like a character becoming self-aware of something that they buried down deep inside. So it is character development, but it's just more. I don't want to just label it that generic character development. But with Morgan, it's a setup. And I think it comes perfect in line with how the stories are going to go, because in episode 4, we're going to get the Morgan standalone episode, which is going to cover the flashbacks of how Morgan went from being a murderous psycho. He was robbing and killing and all that. And I remember when I mentioned that in videos after season 5 ended, talking about that. I remember so many people, I was shocked. There's so many people who were like, what the hell's wrong with you? Morgan is awesome. He's not a murderer. He didn't kill anybody. And I was just blown away, like, man, go back and rewatch. Like, Morgan's a killer. He's a robber. He was a wolf without being so demented. Back in the day, he was a scavenger, robbing and killing people. I mean, he said it, he admitted it. And there's even a deleted scene if you go back. And I know the argument with deleted scenes, but you have to understand, this was stuff that was in the script. Just because the scene is deleted, the backstory and the shit with the characters is still there. Like, that's what they had. Morgan was a killer. So I love how that most likely will tie into the fact that, and this is what this episode is setting up so perfect, is the fact that Morgan isn't just saying all life is precious, I don't want to kill these guys because, something about life, I'm a fucking hippie and I get high. He's talking about, man, I was a killing, murdering thug piece of shit. Someone brought me around. and I love waking up and being alive, and I think that everyone else deserves that right to get the chance to turn their life around. I do believe they're going to go in that direction, and I do believe that this episode was the jumping off point for Morgan, because it really, really, even though he did annoy me with the whole, we're in the middle of a battle and let me talk about my philosophy about how all life is precious. Yeah, calm your roll and just kill a motherfucker, Morgan. Just come on, do it. But even though I said that previously, I'm letting you know, I still give the story credit for this. It's giving me something I didn't know I wanted. Okay? Now, speaking of the Morgan situation and Carol in this episode, there was something that I am a little worried about, and I know everyone's seen it. The possibility that they're just recycling the storyline between Carol and Tyrese. Because remember, back then you got Carol, white chick, Tyrese, black dude. I know not a lot of people want to just come out and say it all blunt, but let's be blunt with it. Carol, white chick, Tyrese, black dude. White chick, Carol just wants to go kill, get the shit done with. She might not love it or enjoy it, but if she needs to kill, she'll kill, bottom line. And then you got Tyrese, who's like, well, I don't want to kill, I shouldn't have to be forced to doing that. Later he explains, it took everything in me, it took strength not to kill. Killing is just the easy way, which I do agree with in this situation, not like every day. But anyway, then now you got the new Tyrese, which is Morgan, and then we're back with Carol, who is killing. So we have what seems to be a recycled storyline. Now, right now I don't believe they're just recycling what they did in season 5. Now, I believe what they're doing is mirroring the storyline. So recycling is easy. You just take an old storyline and you recycle it with different characters. Mirroring a storyline is something that I absolutely love, and it's complicated because it could be very general, and it could be pointing out different things that we will go in further detail and dissect once we see how this plays out with Morgan, especially with his flashback episode. So we can't go into detail with it yet, but I do want to bring this up now with the possibility that they're recycling it. Me personally, I believe that what they're doing is they're mirroring this storyline, and they're going to give us something different in the payoff. So I want to save our discussions until that comes up. Now, another big aspect that made me fall in love with this story in this episode, particularly this episode, is the fact that the events in this episode validified every single thing that the scary stranger was telling the poor Alexandrians way back in season 5. And that scary stranger I'm talking about is Rick Grimes. When he shows up, he's all bloody, and he's like, listen, I didn't let it in. It got in all by itself, and it's good. They're going to keep getting in. Those people out there, they're going to want to get into. They're going to want to take it because we're in here. And he goes on to say, and I don't know his speech, word for word, but I think it's one of the best speeches in The Walking Dead. If I made a list right now, that would be at the top of the list. I'm telling you right now, it would. He follows that up with, what I was thinking? How many of you do I have to kill to save your lives? And I'm not going to do that. You're going to change. We're going to change. If you go back now and rewatch that speech, then watch episode 2, or just think back to episode 2 and what the Alexandrians went through, the terror and just people, you're baking cookies, smoking a cigarette outside, and next thing you know, you're taking a machete to the face, and your friends are being brutally butchered in the streets where your kids were playing peacefully just before. This has been your home for a year, maybe a year and a half, and now your friends and loved ones and just people you've grown so close to over that time, their body parts are literally scattered in the streets where your kids used to run up and down and play. Put it into perspective, that's a very tragic thing to experience. And just think back now that this stranger who you used to be so afraid of just a couple nights before, or a week and a half before, he was warning you need to change, because there's people that want to come in here because you're in here. No matter, I don't care if it's to take your shit, just to kill you, to have fun. I don't care if it's the walkers coming to get in here. He's like, you need to change. And he was such a psycho about it. He was flipping out, blood dripping in the middle of the streets, being like, ah, da, 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 da. Now when they look back, they're like, holy shit. Fuck, I should have listened to Rick Grimes. And that makes me believe that when Rick Grimes comes back, and maybe the wolves do attack again, and a person might die, because I'm thinking that with the one wolf taking the gun, it's very likely that that does happen, and it changes Morgan somewhat. But with the wolves coming back, I'm thinking Rick Grimes is now in the position to squash that beef with ease, with a lot less people dying, and you have this man who knows what to do. You have a leader who's confident. He's got a shooter in the tower. Sasha's back now. Remember, the next time the wolves come back, you have Sasha in the tower. You have Michonne, and Daryl's possibly gone still, but you have Abraham and Glenn and everyone else. Rick's got him on guard, everything prepped. The wolves come at the door. They try to attack. And the Alexandrians might be scared again, but they're looking at this leader who isn't showing the slightest sign of fear, and he just kills those wolves. Imagine what those people would feel after that. They would hang on every word Rick Grimes said. They would finally believe in Rick Grimes. This is the purpose of the Scavengers in the comic book. The Scavengers are who the wolves were. Do you see how the writers of The Walking Dead, who constantly get shit talked about being horrible writers and, shitty writing and this and that, and that's why sometimes I go on the defensive for the writing, because when you break this shit down, I don't see a lot of people coming up with this much in-depth ideas about how they would write it any better. And that's why I do go on a defensive, because look at what they did with the writing. They did all this other scenes that a lot of people call filler, and now when you look back in retrospect, look what it's doing and how it's impacting the story, and some of us just gloss over it like, oh, just have the wolves come, bloody, awesome, epic, and be done with it. No, the shit they're doing and the shit they're filling the story with isn't filler. It's fleshing it out. So don't get confused between what's filler and what's fleshing it out. The writers oftentimes are underappreciated, I feel, in the world of The Walking Dead. And I just want to say that piece. Because the shit they're doing with the wolves, if it plays out the way I think it's going to play out, they did a terrific job. In just 2 episodes, they killed it. Now I'm going to stop there. These 2 videos were only supposed to be 4-minute quick discussions, and they are already twice as long. Listen, give me your thoughts and opinions. Guys, I do want to say this again. With the internet is the only thing slowing these videos down. I'm backed up on my videos. With the new upgraded computer, I am producing so much more content than I can upload. The bottleneck right now is uploading, so I got a stack of videos waiting to just pump out, and I got a lot more ideas coming. I do have the problem, when I get the internet fixed and I can pump out videos, I will pump out a quick explanation and most likely a rant video about this particular service provider, because they just don't want to do anything. Anyway, guys, I'm going to shut up now. Give me your thoughts and opinions about this episode in that comment box. I'm done talking. It's your turn.
Subscribe now.